Okay, right. There are 11 of us in this call, only five people on the game. So if you want to join, I'll give you 30 seconds. Otherwise, we'll make a start. Um, Regardless or not, but you can, as always, you can still join midway through the game. The game pin will stay on screen if you want to join in and you have some amount of time. Alternatively, if you can't get onto Kahoots, you can leave the answers within the chat and I will see them and yeah, mark yourself on that so that you're not missing out. Okay, right, let's make a start. I hate this music, but I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna put it on quietly. Right. So it's going to be on things that we have been over the that's the things that we've been doing over the past few weeks or months. Definitions and keywords. So what technique is the harsh sound created by the letters F, C, V, T, and K? We're looking for language devices that we have looked at together. Nice. Seems that you are revising this one. The nice, easy thing to remember about fricative sounds is all the letters are within the word itself. So nice, easy to remember. Okay, a mild or indirect expression used to replace a harsher or more direct one. Ooh. Hey, more divisive answers on this one. Most people went with either tone or colloquialism, and I put them in there to trick you on purpose. But the right word is a euphemism, and we looked at these last week for people who were here. So, for example, instead of saying he died, you could say he passed away. That would be a euphemism. A comparison using like or as. We looked at this a couple of months ago. Nice. I would expect a clean win across the board for this one. Okay, words that imitate real sounds like buzz or crash. Nice. Okay, most people went with the right answer, which was onomatopoeia. But people got confused with consonants, and we looked at that, I think, a couple weeks ago. Consonants is when you repeat sounds in the middle of words, so I get where the confusion would come from. But the difference is onomatopoeia is the full word that represents a sound. For example, buzz, crash, clang, bam, boom. Whereas consonants are the repeated letters within words. Okay, a direct comparison where one thing is said to be another. Nice, almost clean sweep. Again, it is a metaphor. Okay, question six. Informal or conversational language. So things like slang, abbreviations, that sort of thing. Things that you would say to your friends. Okay, it is a colloquialism. Again, I put tone in there to be slightly confusing, but it is a colloquialism. Okay, giving human qualities to non-human objects or ideas. Okay, it is personification. Almost clean sweep. Someone put a triplet. Okay, the repeated use of a word or phrase. Nice. The answer was in the question. It's a repetition. Okay, two contradictory terms placed together or next to each other. Not one that we've looked at together, but one that we will look at. It is an oxymoron. People went metaphor and colloquialism, but oxymoron across the board. Not to be confused with juxtaposition. Okay, a technique where ideas or items are grouped in threes. Nice. Clean sweep, again, within the word itself, a rule of three. Okay, the writer's attitude or emotional stance towards the subject. Think about the different ways you could say something, and the different ways would be your. All right. Okay. A lot of people, and again, I put these in there to trick you, emotive language. Emotive language could be, or it could show the writer's attitude or emotional state, but emotive language is more there to encourage the reader to feel a certain way. Is our tone. The tone is how something is said, and how it is said is how it's said by the writer. It's how they feel within the tone itself. Not to be confused with atmosphere, which is the effect produced within the reader. So tone is the different ways you could say something. The feeling or mood created in a text through setting and description. Hey, it is atmosphere. Yeah, atmosphere is just the emotion that is created within the reader from reading the text. A theme is more an idea that transcends throughout the entire novel or text. So a theme could be something like capitalism, power, appearance versus reality. A theme is more an idea, whereas an atmosphere is the feeling that's created. Representing deeper meanings using object, characters, or events. The key thing here is deeper meanings. Okay. Most people got symbolism, which is the correct answer. I'm glad nobody put simile. Imagery, if you can see it in your head, the description is imagery. With covered euphemisms, it is symbolism. Symbolism is when something represents an idea that is beyond the literal. So examples could be the conch shell from Lord of the Flies. Yes, on a literal level, it is a shell. On a deeper figurative level, it represents order within chaos. So it's when things represent deeper ideas. The repetition of consonant sounds within nearby words. Hopefully, you'll be able to get this from the wording of the question. Okay, it is consonants. Nice. It's within the question itself. Consonants, consonants. So we talked about consonants quite a lot recently. Things like our sibilants, fricative sounds, plosive sounds. Sounds that repeat throughout words. Very symbolic. Okay, the repetition of soft S or SH sounds. Nice. Most people got this again. It is our sibilant sounds. Fricatives are our F, our C, our T, V, and K. Plosives are our P, B, D. And nasals are our M and our N's. A short, explosive sound produced by the letters P, B, D, or N. Or G, I missed off there. G could be a plosive sound. Lovely. It is a plosive. It's plosive. I think I just gave you the answer without even knowing it. I subconsciously said that. Right. The repetition of the same initial consonant sound at the beginning of a series of words close together. So the same letter at the beginning of different words. I probably could have written this in a simpler way, my bad. So they're using the same letter at the start of multiple words. It is alliteration. Having or showing strong passion, enthusiasm, or intensity. So onto our vocabulary section now. I gave you 5 new words at the end of last week's session. Have you learnt them? Answers coming through a bit slow for this one. Proof is in the pudding. Not many people have been over our key words that I gave you to do. It is fervent. You might often hear flames being described as fervent, meaning that they're hot, they're fiery, they're intense. You might say that you have fervent motivation. Determined and persistent, not giving up easily. Hey. Now, I put amiable in there to trick you because last week, not many people, or the week before, knew what amiable meant. So I put that in there to see if you would be able to dodge my trick. But it is tenacious. Yeah, one of our new words that I gave you at the end of last session. Okay, boring, repetitive, or monotonous. Ooh, slower and less people answering. Tedious is our correct answer. I think people might have just seen rapacious and thought it's a new word, but it's not, it's tedious. By the way, these are all useful words to know. Adding to your vocabulary will only help you in the long run, whether it's exams or whether it's in other subjects. It's always helpful to get your brain going. So exciting, thrilling, and making you feel alive. Lovely, exciting. Most people got this. Right, last question then. Although I think we already have our winner. Greedy or grasping, often with a negative or aggressive sense. Ooh, an even split almost. It is rapacious. You might often hear soldiers or cavalrymen being described as rapacious. Often means that, yeah, very much as the definition says, they're greedy and grasping. So they often do things in a negative way. So if a rapacious cavalryman, someone who comes in, maybe invades an indigenous tribe. Okay, let's see who our winner is, but I'm pretty sure I know. Very symbolic. Love it. Thank you to everyone who joined in. As always, it's really nice. It's nice that we have a session where we can be interactive. I hope you're enjoying these Kahoots. Remember, if you want to be with the best chance of winning, come on time, because a few of you entered late there. Okay, right. Let's get on with what we're doing today. On one of our last sessions of language. And I want to get this done next week so that over sort of the Christmas period, we can begin to move on to other skills. But I'm wanting today to focus on onomatopoeia because it's not something that we've looked at yet. Hopefully, this shouldn't be something that is new to you. It's one of the things you got taught in primary school, and it's a very useful language device to have under your tool belt. And there's a reason I've kept it till this late. So let's recap what we've already done. We have looked at this idea of inferences, about making an inference. An inference is basically working something out from the evidence that you've been given. Because sometimes a writer, well, I say sometimes, more often than not, a good writer will never tell you things directly. They will give you hints and clues so that you can work things out. And making an inference is what we call working those things out. Essentially, it's reading between the lines. And we've looked at subtext and connotations to make inferences, and we're going to look back at connotations today. But as I said at the bottom, English is all about forming your own opinions based on the choice of words that are presented to you. Okay. I briefly also want to retouch on this connotation because it's really important. A connotation is when a word holds a deeper meaning beyond its literal meaning. So, for example, the one that I keep giving you is this idea of blue. Blue literally is a color, but on a deeper level, it can represent other things. So, for example, if you say somebody's feeling blue, they're feeling sad, they're lonely, they're miserable. Yes, blue can have other connotations away from just being a color. Similarly, you might get home. If I said I'm going home rather than say I'm going back to my house, that's because I associate my home with things beyond it just being a literal house. So, for example, I might associate it with comfort and safety. A snake, yes, is literally an animal, but it could suggest danger, betrayal, sneakiness. A rose is literally a flower, but I might associate it with ideas of love and beauty. They are its connotations. So the connotation is what the word makes you think and feel beyond its literal meaning. Let me turn up my volume in case that's the problem. Okay. So yeah, a word's connotation is made up of what it makes the reader think and feel. Is that better? I think that might be your Wi-Fi. Okay, right. So I also want to revisit this idea of atmosphere, and this will come into play again today. So as you saw in the quiz, the atmosphere is what is created from the writing. It's the way that writing makes you feel. So for example, an atmosphere, if you're describing, for example, a really violent storm, perhaps that storm makes you feel entrapped, scared, oppressed. And so the atmosphere might be eerie, oppressive, an atmosphere of entrapment. It's just the way that it makes you feel. If you were describing, for example, you were sat by the window reading one of your favorite books in the springtime, that might give you an atmosphere of comfort, of safety, of nostalgia. Very different to the way that a storm would make you feel. And that's all the atmosphere is. It's the way that writing makes you feel. And I think often people get confused by atmosphere, but what's really quite a simple thing. It's the way that it makes you feel. So I gave you these examples. The wind howled through the broken windows. The feeling, the atmosphere that's created is quite scary, it's quite lonely. compared to sunlight danced on the water as children laughed. The atmosphere is quite happy there, quite carefree. And it's the choice of words within those sentences that give you the feelings, the atmosphere. So the howling and the broken here are the ones that kind of have negative associations, whereas sunlight and dancing and laughing have positive vibes. And so you can work out the atmosphere from the negative or the positive associations of each word. Okay, and I gave you in the past a list of potential atmospheres. These aren't the only ones, these are just some examples of types of atmospheres you can have. There is no wrong answer when it comes to an atmosphere, it's purely how it makes you feel. So as long as you can justify it, it's okay by me. But I want to link these ideas to onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, I think most of you or all of you got this right in the quiz, is basically when words imitate sounds. So I've given you quite a lot of examples here. These are comic strip examples, things like boom, crunch, crack, bang, crush, snap, words that imitate the sound they are trying to convey. And writers use onomatopoeia to make descriptions vivid, engaging, and sometimes realistic. But there's a reason that I've reminded you of connotations, because onomatopoeic words can hold associations beyond their literal meaning. So, for example, snap, on a literal sense, snap, broken something. On a metaphorical connotation level, what might it represent? It might have a bigger idea. So we're going to start exploring this today. I briefly want to denote the purpose of onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia does more than imitate sounds. It helps to create a specific mood, tone, or emotional effect within the text. The sound of the word itself can give us clues about the writer's intentions and the atmosphere they want to build. Certain sounds, can suggest speed, violence, calm, tension, chaos, etc., helping the reader feel the moment more intensely. So what I'm trying to say is certain choices of onomatopoeic words can make you feel a certain way and can influence the atmosphere and the mood that is created by our connotations to the chosen word. So when analyzing language, consider what mood or emotion does the sound emphasize? What connotation does the sound carry? Why might the writer want the reader to experience that specific feeling? Onomatopoeia helps us understand how sounds shape meaning, not just what is happening, but how it feels. Very important. So I hope you've understood why I've left it till later on, because it's kind of tying together a lot of what we have done recently. And I want to tie it even further right now, because it is tightly linked to both connotation and sounds. And we've looked at sound recently. I gave you this, I think it was week 4. I think this is 4 or 5 weeks ago now. We looked at the connotations of sound. Writers don't only choose words for their meanings, they also choose them for their sounds. And we've looked at different types of sounds within our exploration. And they're these. There are sibilant sounds, our fricative sounds, and our plosive sounds, and the 3 that I would like to revisit. So, sibilant sounds. I think most of you got this in the quiz. There are S and our Z and our SH sounds. The effect that they tend to have can either be calming, like I don't know, a shimmering, shiny, shimmering, shiny, salty lake. The repeated S sound creates quite a calming effect. However, you could also use sibilants to create the opposite, something that's more sinister, like a slithery, slimy snake. Might be more sinister effect. So we tend to use sibilant sounds for either of those 2 extremes, either calming or sinister. Whereas things like fricative sounds really only have one effect, generally. These are, like I said in the exam, or the quiz, they're within the letters within the word itself. There are F, V, C, T, K sounds. And the effect that they tend to have are quite harsh. They're quite brutal. So things like flick, thorn, um, shuffle, which I think sn crick, that sort of thing. And the effect that they have tend to be quite jarring, and they tend to create tension within a piece, often making the reader feel quite uneasy or unsettled, compared to sibilant sounds, which are calmer, slash sinister, and fricative sounds tend to be more harsh, jarring, making you feel quite uneasy. Someone said if their Wi-Fi is bad, can you? Yeah. If you need to join, come back, join. Do so, please. Fine. And then also we finally had our plosive sounds as well. So in the quiz, I think most you got these right. There are P, B, D, G, some overlap between T and K. You can call it plosive, but it's mainly our P, B, D, and K, D and G sounds. And the effect that they have are high energy. They're harsh, they're hard hitting. If you get P sounds like slap, um, ping. There are plosive sounds, the ones that are hard hitting, that you say with energy when they come out of your mouth. I guess the good way of remembering is if you say fricative sounds, they tend to come from sort of the back of the throat. If you say plosive sounds, they come from the lips. P, G, D. They're the difference. And the effect really is how it feels. Plosive is energy, fricative, uneasiness. Okay. And I'm going to give you some famous examples of onomatopoeia using what I've just told you. Okay, the murmuring of innumerable bees, something said by Tennyson. The idea of murmuring here, this is our onomatopoeia, suggests on a connotation level, not just sounds, but something smoothing, something rhythmic. So the atmosphere that will be created here is something that's quite peaceful, quite calm, almost dreamlike. The sort of nasal M sounds, the murmuring, the innumerable, those nasal sounds emphasize that calming atmosphere because they sound calming. So this is really all that English is about. If you feel something, say it. Because N and M sounds sound quite calm when you say them, so they represent something calm. Similarly, you might get a quote from Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, and the silken, sad, unsettling rustle of each purple curtain. Notice there, I really emphasize the S sounds. There are sibilant sounds within that sentence. The onomatopoeic word here is rustling. And if we pick rustling apart, it doesn't just convey movement, because that's its literal meaning. It almost conveys unease, tension, almost supernatural suspense, therefore creating an atmosphere of uneasiness and sinisterness and fear. And that sibilant S makes it all the more sinister. The clang, clash, clash from Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. They're there to create quite a metallic sound, mimicking the feeling of falling onto metal. Therefore, we can pick it apart. What's its connotations? Cold, violent. Therefore, pick it apart even further. What have we got? We've got fricative, repeated fricative Cs that provide the harsh sound that it's supposed to be mimicking. It's trying to convey violence, and the fricative C emphasizes that violence because when you say k, that sounds violent, it sounds aggressive. So the sound mimics it. And then finally, the brook would babble on. They repeated B sounds, the onomatopoeia here being babble. If we start picking out the word babble first, it has connotations of water, of playfulness, of innocence, of nature, of harmony. That's its connotations. And then if we link it to the sounds, the plosive B is high energy. So that supports its connotations. We already said it made you think of playfulness and innocence. Well, the plosive B supports that by providing high energy. We've said in the past that high energy doesn't just have to be aggression. It could be you've got high energy when you want to play, when you want to go for a run, things that are positive as well as negative. You don't have to take notes. I guess it's a good time for me to quickly say Mr. Siddiqui has now created officially a place for me to upload these slides. So you're going to be sent those within the next brief period of time. So if you want access to these notes, they will be available to you. Um, I chased them up about it today. Okay, so thinking about before we move on to our typical questions that we love to do, we're thinking about step by step my tips to how I would analyze onomatopoeia. I advise you to do it in an exam format when you move into your GCSEs. So, step one, I would look at the connotations of the word, and we've really toyed with this over the past few months. Um, and I've broken that down into even smaller steps. So, firstly, always make sure to read the word carefully. Then I would focus on the images and feelings that that word makes you think and makes you feel. So ask yourself, does the word feel soft or hard? Is it fast or is it slow? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it happy? Is it scary? Is it sad? Then I would think about, or for example, I went buzz. When I think of buzzing, the first thing that comes to my head are bees. And so then I can pick bees even further apart. When I think of bees, I think of that they whiz about, that they're really quick. I think that they could sting you. Think about the memories or experiences that that word holds. So when you think of bees, what memory comes to your head? Where were you? If did something negative happen to you from a bee? Did something positive happen? Where were you? How did that experience make you feel? Write down what that word suggests. Think beyond its literal meaning. On a literal sense, buzz is that buzz sound. But can it represent something beyond its literal meaning? Well, you've already started to pick it apart. It represents fast pace, potential pain from the stinging. Example, it could be crash. Yes, in a literal sense, crash means to collide with something. But what do you associate with crashing? Well, I think chaos. I think, well, danger because you could suffer if you were in a crash. I think it's something that's quite sudden. I think it's something out. And then I would ask yourself why the writer chose that word. What do they want you to feel or imagine? And that's only step one, broken into mini steps. Like with a microscope, I would always start big and zoom in. Begin with general ideas and then start to pick those ideas apart even further. So, for example, with the buzz, I'd start with the word. The first thing that comes to my mind, bees. Okay, that's our general. Let's zoom in. When I think of bees, what do I think of? I think fast movement. Okay, when I think of bees, I think that they're coordinated within the hive. I also think that they could sting me. What do I associate with fast movement and stinging? Irritation. So it might make you feel, so therefore, how does it make you feel? Irritated, uneasy, fearful. I had this one memory where I got stung badly by a bee. How did I feel when I got stung by a bee? I was scared. I've developed a phobia of bees, so on and so on. You can start to pick these words apart. Another example, I went with crash again. When I think of crashing, I think it's really loud because you collide with something. I think it's really sudden, it's unexpected. I think it's high impact. If I was in a crash, how would I feel? I'd probably feel pain. And if I was in pain, how would I feel? Well, I'd probably be suffering. Um, because I'm suffering, I know that event was dangerous. Because it's dangerous, I know it's something that's chaotic. It's not ordinary. Because it's chaotic, it's potentially violent. It's therefore, how do I feel if I was in a crash? Well, it'd be tense, it'd be scary, it'd be shocking. So I'd start to pick these words apart from general and zoom in. It's a bit like a mental mind map, highlighting everything a word makes you think and feel. Then step two, examine the sounds like we have been doing. Are the sounds plosive, sibilant, fricative, nasal? And then I connect those sounds to meanings. So like I just said before, plosive sounds are high energy, sibilants are soft, are calming or sinister, fricative are harsh, often indicating suffering, and then nasals are often again calming and comforting. And then I explain its effects, linking to the writer's intentions. Okay, but I want to move on to our questions for today because I'm aware that we only have 25 minutes. So, as always, I love these sessions because you all nicely contribute, and I really like that about you guys. So, as always, answers in the chat, please. The quote for today, and the only word there spoken, was the whispered word, Lenore, from a poem called The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. The questions are this. What are the connotations of the word or the verb whispered? So when you think of whispered, let's do our mental mind map. Start general, zoom in. When you think of whispered, what do you think of? Maybe you think of secrets because you only whisper when you don't want people to hear you. Can you zoom in further? Question two, what type of phonetic sound sticks out within the sentence or the word? How does that make you feel? If someone whispered to if someone whispered something to you, how would you feel? If you saw someone whispering, how would you feel? How does the sound make you feel, the phonetic sound? And then what atmosphere is the writer trying to create? I'm getting you to try and start forming how to answer questions. Because in exam, this is exactly how you would structure an explanation part of your answer. So I'm getting you to mentally prepare. Right. Let's see what people are saying this week. So someone said worried. Why do you say worried? I like it, but why? Not so much contribution this week. Chat's a bit quiet. Come on, guys, engage your brains. I love how interactive you are. Can't do all the work myself. I could, but it'd be pointless. Okay, I start you off. When I think about whispering, I think, well, maybe someone's keeping secrets from me. Maybe you do something with caution. If someone was whispering behind my back, I'd feel hesitant. I'd feel almost quite betrayed. I'd be quite nervous. The sounds in the sentence. Okay, we're getting some answers through. Someone said plotting. Lovely. Yeah, maybe someone's plotting against you. If someone was plotting, how would that make you feel? Someone said worried and scared because it shows that it is quiet and lonely. Love it. The person may not want to share the worry with somebody else. Someone said weird, odd, gossip. All these things are lovely. What kind of sounds are created here? The only word spoken was the whispered word. We've got emphasis on our S's. I think we have some sibilant sounds there. We have some emphasis on the S's. And then finally, what kind of atmosphere is someone trying to create? Because you feel, it's sort of some lovely feeling words. You feel worried, you feel scared, but that's not necessarily atmosphere. That's the way it makes you feel. But what's the atmosphere? What's the overall emotion or mood that is created? I think combine everything you said in the chat. Eerie, lovely way of putting it. Yes, I went with this. Whisper suggests secrecy, softness, caution. It can imply fear, sadness, or hesitation. The sibilant sounds reinforce the quiet and sinister tone, which makes me feel tense, curious, and uneasy. But scary, worried, all great answers as well. The atmosphere created is haunting. I don't know why I typed it like that. Suspenseful and eerie. Gonna correct that now. But yeah, nice one, guys. Okay. Right, on to the next one. Let's keep practicing. The crack of the whip. What are the connotations of our onomatopoeic word crack? What type of phonetic sounds stick out within the word or sentence? And then how does it make you feel? What atmosphere is the writer trying to create? So let's start with our connotations of the word crack. Someone already lovely, can't speak today. Somebody already nicely said fricative. It is our fricative sounds. We've got our C, our K within the word crack itself. Okay. So, what are the connotations? Yes, on a literal sense, it's the breaking of something, the crack. There's a gap. But on a literal sense, does it mean something deeper? When you think about the word crack, what do you think of? Pain, lovely, lovely way to start. So he said, yeah, pain is a lovely way to start. So pain, punishment, fear, control. Oh, it's a lovely word, beautiful. So suffering, so pain, absolutely getting it right. I can see we've made progress. This is really nice. Um, Excruciatingly painful. Fear, worry, excellent. I think we've cracked. I think we've cracked this one. Crack suggests suddenness, sharpness, and violence. Um, it can also imply power, control, danger. Somebody said power. Again, as always, these are only my opinions. They're not necessarily the only right answer. Um, I also liked somebody said pain, suffering, excruciatingly painful, punishment, fear, control. Every single word being said here is correct. The fricative sound is sharp and sudden, which mirrors the impact of the action described to emphasize the sheer force of the whip. It makes the reader feel tense, startled, frightened. Um, Someone said fearful, worried. Yeah, they're great as well. Because you can feel the pain and the suffering endured by the force of the whip. The atmosphere is tense, threatening, dramatic to emphasize violence and danger, but everything like punishment was a really nice way of putting it in there as well. I'm actually going to add that to the PowerPoint. It also implies punishment. It's a nice way of thinking about it. Okay, right. On to the next one then. The soldiers marched through the desert under the sizzling heat. The onomatopoeic word here is sizzling. It mimics the sound. What are some connotations of sizzling? What type of phonetic sound sticks out in the word? How does that make you feel? What atmosphere is the writer trying to create? And what impression does it give you of the heat? Sibilants, multiple people have got it right. Sibilant right off the bat for question 2. We've got our repeated Z sounds. There are sibilant sounds, sizzling. Okay, we said that that sound makes you feel a certain way. If it's either calm or it's sinister. What do we think it is here? Somebody said the idea of cooking. Lovely, very nice. So can you link it to the heat? If it has connotations of cooking, how would you think that presents the heat in terms of our soldiers? Sinister, lovely, as a straw horse, absolutely. Boiling, burning heat, dryness, fighting, all of these are absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I think if I was under this intense heat, I think it would be quite painful, very oppressive, very suffocating almost. Scorching, boiling, lovely. Okay, so in that case then, you've all smashed 1, 2, I think 5. What about 3 and 4? How does that pain make you feel? How does the atmosphere, or what is the atmosphere that is trying to be created? Someone said painful atmosphere, frustration, definitely. Suffering, very lovely. Any more for any more? But yeah, you're all on the right track. Imagine, I guess the atmosphere, the best way to think about it is if you were in that situation, how would you feel? Like if you were underneath such intense, painful heat and you were suffering, how would you feel? Imagine you were in the desert and you physically couldn't escape the heat. Fear, exhaustion, uncomfortable, lovely. Okay, it's what I went with. The sizzling has connotations of intense burning heat and unrelenting pressure. The sibilant sounds make the word hiss and buzz, which mirrors the oppressive, almost active nature of the heat. Makes the reader feel uncomfortable, exhausted, tense. Someone said exhaustion. So, lovely. We've got exhaustion and uncomfortable. As if the environment itself is working against the soldiers. The writer is creating an atmosphere of oppression and struggle, emphasizing how harsh and punishing the desert is. The impression of the heat is that it's relentless, overwhelming, almost suffocating, making the soldier's journey feel even more grueling. So is it hopeless, unescapable? Okay, right. Let's do one more until we move on to our faults. She sat by the window, listening to the gentle drip of rain from the eaves, letting her thoughts wander with each soft, steady sound. So we've got drip as our onomatopoeic word. What connotations do you have of drip? What is the phonetic sound within the word? How does that make you feel? And what atmosphere is the writer trying to create? And what impression does it give you of the woman specifically? Okay, let's see what's been put in. Okay, it's not going to be fricative. In the word drip, we've got a D and a P, both hard-hitting, energetic sounds. Someone said loneliness. Possibly it's not how I interpreted it, but definitely could be considered lonely. Soft, steady, plosive is the right answer for the sound. It's our D's and our P's. And with plosive sounds come high energy. Well, energy, not necessarily high, but energy. Okay, so loneliness, soft and steadiness. When I think of dripping, what do you think of? When I think of dripping, I think what drips? It's water, possibly rain. When it drips, what sound does it make? It's kind of, or how does it make you feel when the rain is dripping? To me, it's quite comforting. It's quite calm. You know, when you're inside and you can hear the rain outside and you feel comforted knowing that you're in the warmth. How would that make you feel? What atmosphere is the writer trying to create? What impression does it give you of the woman? When I think of dripping, I think of almost it's repetitive. You know, you don't normally, when it's raining, you don't tend to just get one drip. You tend to get multiple drips. Okay, it's getting a bit quiet in the chat, so I'll go through what I said. I said it has connotations of soft calmness and gentle repetition, creating for me quite a peaceful environment. You know, you get the soft plosive D and P sounds, which make the word quite quiet almost, reflecting the gentle nature of the rain. It provides a low energy rather than something explosive. This makes the reader feel relaxed and contemplative, as if being drawn into the same reflective mood as the woman. The writer is creating an atmosphere of tranquility and introspection, encouraging a sense of calm. The impression we get of the woman is that she's thoughtful, reflective, and at ease, taking time to pause and quietly consider her thoughts. Possibly lonely. I hadn't thought about it like that, but definitely could be a contender. Okay, a few more to do, and then I'll let you go. Just to remind you, this class is normally finishes at 1/4 past, but I'm gonna finish at 10 past today to get ready for my GCSE class after this. Okay, so I wanted to quickly remind you of this acronym of faults is a good way to describe the effects of the reader using one of the words feel, ask, understand, link, think, or sympathize. Okay. The earthquake rumbled the foundations of our house. Rumbling is the onomatopoeic word here. So what are the connotations of rumbled? What type of phonetic sound is within rumbled? What atmosphere is the writer trying to create? What impression does it give you of the earthquake? And how does it make you feel? Again, no wrong answers. When you think of rumbling, there is some glides in there. Not the one I just wanted to focus on, but there are. The R and the L, actually, yeah, you are right. Not the one I was going to focus on, but you are technically right. Oops. Ooh, I meant to change euphemism. It's meant to say onomatopoeia. Okay. Okay, anything else in the chat? We've gone a bit quiet. When I think of rumbling, what do I think of? I think of, well, earthquakes, and I think of something that's very loud, um, something that's high energy, something that potentially do damage. If there's a rumble, it's something that almost transcends distance over long distances. It's something that's powerful, something that's maybe quite destructive. What sounds stick out? Well, I would have focused on the M, B, and D. They're all quite plosive sounds again. So damaging, destroying, somebody said, lovely. So if we're thinking about this idea of destruction as suggested by the picture, what atmosphere is being created? How would you feel, in other words, if you were within an earthquake? Uh, what impression does it give you of the earthquake? To me, that suggests power. That suggests that it's something quite powerful and destructive. How does it make you feel? Well, I'd be quite nervous. I'd be quite scared if I was within an earthquake due to its power. Someone said worried, sad, full of fear. Very nice. So I went with this. The word rumbled has connotations of deep, powerful, and continuous movement, suggesting something large and unstoppable. The plosive M, B, D sounds give the word a low vibrating quality, which mimics the shaking of the earth. The writer is an atmosphere of tension, danger, and instability, making the reader feel that the situation is threatening and serious. And the impression we get of the earthquake is that it is a massive, forceful, and overwhelming, as it cannot be controlled. It makes the reader feel anxious, uneasy, and aware of the destructive power of nature. And again, let me change this to onomatopoeia. Okay, right, on to the next one then. We'll do one more and then we'll call it a day. So, thinking about understanding, the workers hauled the heavy weights across the warehouse. They're grunting, echoing off the halls. So, grunting is our onomatopoeic word. So, firstly, what are some connotations of grunting? When might you grunt? What sounds might you make? How might you be feeling if you were grunting? What scenarios would you be doing if you were grunting? What type of phonetic sound sticks out within the word grunting? What atmosphere is the writer trying to create? And what impression does it give you of the workers if they are the ones that are grunting? So, I think the difficulty with sounds is that you can have multiple answers because there are some fricative, there is a fricative T in there. But normally you only tend to use sounds when there's multiple of them in there because only one T, I maybe wouldn't describe this as fricative. What I would focus on are the G's and the N's. There's grunting. Ignore the sounds for now. Think about what are the connotations of grunting. When might you grunt? What scenarios, what situations might you grunt? Some says, when we'll be doing lit. Not today. We're going to be doing language for GCSE today. So when you don't want to do something, yeah, absolutely. So let's pick it apart even further. We said someone's moaning. So yeah, when you don't want to do something, when might you want to do something? Someone said when you're lifting something heavy, absolutely. So if I was lifting something heavy, I think that's a lot of effort, possibly quite energy draining. Someone said we'll get on to homework in a second. Let's get the answer of this down. Okay, right, I'll give you my answer. I said the word grunting has connotations of hard work, physical effort, strain, and fatigue. The hard G and nasal N sounds create the word, make the word feel rough and heavy, echoing the effort of the workers that they are exerting. The writer is creating an atmosphere of exhaustion and intense labor, making the space feel physically demanding and oppressive. The impression we get on the workers is that they are tired, strong, and focused, struggling with the weight of their task, but continuing despite their difficulty. Okay, right. So this week's homework then. I've noticed a significant drop in the homework response recently. Um, I would like to see, hopefully, more submissions. Um, I mean, it is technically not compulsory, it's optional, but it will significantly help you. And I've not given you a lengthy task this week, so I would like to see some. Please send them to my email at english@steptosuccess.co.uk. Preferably an online document, but if you want to write it and scan it and send it, please do. So yeah, this is the homework. I've given you three more sentences. I want you to find the onomatopoeic word, list the connotations of that word, note what the phonetic sound is within the word, and then write a short paragraph using one of the words from Faults to describe the atmosphere created and how it affects the reader. And I'll leave that up for a minute or so for anyone who wants to ask me any questions. Otherwise, you are welcome to stay for our GCSE session, which we will also be doing English language. What do you mean the homework response? If you mean the marking, it will get sent back to you with comments. Okay. Right. So submit it by email to me at this email here, please. Okay, right. If that's everything, I'm going to prepare for the GCSE session. Welcome in to anyone who's early for the GCSE session. Guys, have a nice week. Okay, right. Key stage 4, GCSE. First time, we're going to do a Kahoot. I normally only do this with my Key Stage 3 class, but I thought we'll do a Kahoot. Um, so yeah, whilst we're waiting for other people for the next 3 or 4 minutes, here is the game pin to our English Kahoot, where I'm going to test you on what you know so far about language analysis. And I should say it should be a given. No inappropriate names, please. Equally, if you can't access Zoom, you can put the answers in the chat. I will see them. If you are staying from Key Stage 3, some of these questions will be very similar, if not the same, by the way. So you might have a head start, but there will be some added things in here that you won't know. Okay, right. Let me leave this on for a couple of minutes. Yeah, join. If I see any inappropriate names, I will take you out. You are year 10 and year 11. You should be old enough not to put inappropriate names in, please. Okay. Right, there's 17 people, and there's only 7 people in my Kahoot. For a GCSE class, I would love to see some more. I'll give you another minute to join. Otherwise, if you have just joined us, you will still be able to join mid-session. The pin will stay on. I want to make a start. I also just want to take this time to quickly stress to you, basically, there's been some conversation between us here at the company, and we have decided that we're going to shelve literature for a little while. And I have been advised to focus on language with you for at least a little while. I know we were mid Inspector Calls, not my call. This is just what I have been advised to do. So we're going to focus a little bit on language for the coming weeks. Okay, let's make a start. So these are all key language terms then that you should hopefully know. Some of these will be repeated from the Key Stage 3 quiz. Let me put the sound on. So if you're here repeating from Key Stage 3, you've got a head start. It is our fricative sounds. When will we continue Inspector Calls? I unfortunately don't know. It's been shelved for a little while, at least for the next few months, unfortunately. Oh, Sana, we love to see you. Just props to my girl Sana. Yeah, you can still join the Kahoot. The pin is at the bottom. We've just started. We're revising English language, specifically language devices. So these are all words that you should hopefully know to do language. Okay, a mild or indirect expression used to replace a harsher, more direct one. What is that? What language device is that? These are all definitions, by the way, of language devices. Cool. Right. Most people got this. It's good to know. Because that tends to be one that confuses people. Okay. Right. Let's move on real quick. Breaking up text or sentences into smaller or incomplete parts. There are some structural devices mixed in here as well. And these are all words you should know. If you've been with me for a little while doing English, you should know. Lovely. It's fragmentation. I'm glad. I pushed that one quite hard. It's a really nice, useful structural technique. When you see dashes, tends to be what denotes it. A comparison using like or as. Hopefully pretty simple. Lovely. Um, Only one person wrong. It is a simile. Okay, words that imitate real sounds such as buzz or crash. Again, hopefully we'll know this. Right. Will poems be covered before GCSEs? Possibly. Nice onomatopoeia. I like there's a strong cohort of students in here. It's very nice to see. Okay, the beginning of a story in the middle of action is a structural technique we call Hey, a little divisive this one, but it is in media res. It's a Latin phrase that roughly translates to in the middle of action. So if you start the story in conflict, for example, rather than easing us in, that would be in media res. A direct comparison where one thing is said to be another. Metaphor. Okay, a lot of people use similes, but not metaphors. Informal conversational language is called. Okay, it is a colloquialism. Very nice. Essentially slang language. Giving human qualities to non-human objects or ideas. Okay, it is personification. What I'm going to start doing is cutting off the time a little bit because I do want to get on to what we've got to do next. So instead of giving you 20 seconds, I'll give you 15. I'll skip when we get there. The repeated use of a word or phrase. Right. So I might even skip when we get to 10, just because we've got time. Yeah, it's repetition. The word was within the sentence itself. Okay, so yeah, I'll give you 10 seconds for each question then. Two contradictory terms placed together or next to each other. Okay. It is an oxymoron. I put juxtaposition in there just to confuse you, but oxymoron should not be confused with juxtaposition. Um, the difference being oxymorons are when you have two contradictory words next to each other. So, for example, deafening silence. Things that silence can't literally be deafening. Juxtaposition is when you have ideas that are opposing. So it's not necessarily singular words that are next to each other, it's just general ideas which conflict. So because they were placed together and they were specifically I was asking for terms, it was oxymoron in this case. Okay, a reference to a well-known event, person, or text. Okay, get your answers in. I'll give you. It is allusion. Thinking back to our Macbeth, we saw this a lot, where he alludes to previous historical figures. Okay, a technique where ideas or items are grouped together in threes. Okay, good you up. Yeah, lovely. Put them in both in there just to trick you. A rule of three, you might see called triplets, means the same thing. The use of I, we to tell a story from a character's perspective. Is it first person, second person, third person, or omniscient narration? Okay, it is first person. Using descriptive language to create a vivid scene in the reader's mind. It is imagery. So if you can see it in your head, as I always say, it is imagery. The writer's attitude or emotional stance towards a subject. Okay, it is the tone. Very similar mistake to what my Key Stage 3 class did in the previous session. There's a difference between tone and emotive language. Emotive language are the specific choice of words that are there to make you feel a certain way, whereas tone is the way that something is said. So I could say the same thing in two different voices, and they would be different tones. And the way that I said that sentence would convey how I was feeling about that thing. Okay, a narrative perspective using he, she, or they. Is it first, second, third person, or omniscient? Okay, nice. It's third person. If it's first, it's I and we. If it's third, it's he, she, they. If it's second, it's you. Although you don't tend to find second person narration within literature, to be honest. The feeling or mood created in the text through setting and description. Hey, it is atmosphere. Most people on the ball again. Glad to see all these correct answers. Okay, a structural device that ends a section abruptly to create suspense. Okay. It is a cliffhanger, representing deeper meanings using objects, characters, or events. The key thing here is deeper meanings. Remember, you've only got 10 seconds. Okay, it is symbolism. Words can have figurative meanings beyond their literal, and you might say that that thing represents a deeper idea. Exaggeration. A word meaning exaggeration. Okay, it is hyperbole. I am thrilled to see this many right answers. This is really reassuring. Very happy. Okay, placing two contrasting elements close together for impact. And rather than elements, I should have said ideas. These are juxtaposition. Okay, four more to go. Repetition of consonant sounds within nearby words. Some of you are very quick with the answers. Okay, it is our consonants. Okay, this one seems to be the one that the least amount of people got right. It is our consonants. Something I need to chase up. Language used specifically to evoke strong emotional responses. I knew I would get a surge of answers for this one. It is our emotive language, words that are specifically chosen to make you feel a certain way. Okay, very close between first spot. All to play for in the last two questions. The repetition of soft S or SH sounds. Okay, it is our sibilant sounds. Okay, right, final question then. A short explosive sound produced by the letters P, B, D, N, G. It is our post of sounds. Right, let's see who was won today. Nice. Well done. Thanks for participating, guys. Right. Let me know if that's something you want to do more of, because I know my Key Stage 3 class love it. But yeah, I'm thinking of introducing quizzes sort of like bi-weekly, just to get a sense of where we are. Um, so I want to focus. I've been told or advised to move away for a little bit at least from literature. And I'm going to move and focus on English language because this is something that everyone is doing. And the same skills, no matter the exam board, are being assessed. And today I'm going to focus specifically, and at least and next week as well, on assessment objective one. So I briefly just want to cover the assessment objectives with you. No matter what exam board you are on, the assessment objectives are the same. These are the things, these are the skills that you are getting marked on in the English language exam. And they're 1 to 6. AO1 is about identifying and interpreting language and ideas, selecting and synthesizing evidence from texts. In other words, comprehension. So being able to pick things out of a text. AO2 is about analyzing language and structure, saying how language influences how readers think, how they feel, and using relevant subject terminology. So in other words, language and structural analysis. AO3 is comparing ideas and perspectives, as well as how these are conveyed across 2 or more texts. In other words, similarities and differences. AO4 is evaluating text critically and supporting this with appropriate textual references. Evaluator. Um, those 4 are the ones that you'll be asked in section 1 of your papers. Each English language paper tends to be split into sections 1 and 2, or A and B. And these are the 4 that are assessed in that first half, whereas AO5 and AO6 are creative writing. So AO5 are essentially the choices you make when you do creative writing, and AO6 is the spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And I really want to stress these are the same across all exam boards, whether it's Edexcel, whether it's AQA, OCR, Educast, they're all the same. So whatever we do in these sessions is applicable to everyone. But I am very much aware that everyone does a different exam board. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight to you here, the only difference really is the weighting distributions between these assessment objectives. So Edexcel, AQA, Educast, and OCR. What you'll notice is that OCR is the highest in AO2, so that's the one where you'll find most of your language and structural analysis, which personally I think is the nicest bit. It has the highest portion of comparing texts, so similarities and differences, and then Edexcel has the highest amount of evaluating, not by much, only marginally. Okay, equally, they kind of share AO1 relatively equally 10, 10, 9.4, 8.75. And that's what we're going to focus on today. AO1 is the simplest of assessment objectives. It's the easiest skill to master. It's 10% of your mark. If you can master that 10%, that's 10% already done. So it's a really easy, nice way to just get ahead a little bit to give yourself leeway on further future questions. So I really want to tackle this today. So really just to clear up what AO1 is, it's picking out relevant details and quotes. It's showing you understand what a writer is saying. Can you summarize information? And can you make inferences by reading between the lines? Often, and we'll look at some of these today, the types of questions that you'll find with AO1 are things like true or false statements, retrieving details from a text, and then summarizing things. Um, so as I said, AO1 is comprehension. And all comprehension is understanding what you read. So in English language, it involves identifying information, explaining what a writer means, inferring, summarizing, and understanding vocabulary. But I want to pass this so we can get on with the practice. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to split AO1 into the different exam boards because each exam board asks the same skill slightly differently. And I'm very much aware that you all do different exam boards. So I'm going to start on AQA, move on to some Educast, and then next week we'll move on to some Edexcel and OCR work. But the skills are the same. So AQA, I've highlighted here, this is paper one, question one, and I've highlighted that it's old because there are some changes that will be made to your GCSE come 2026. However, there aren't really many practice questions on the new change, and I'll explain that slightly later. So I wanted to do some older questions just to practice because the skills are the same. So in your old version of the exam, you would get a question that looked like this, and it would say, read again from the first part of the source, lines, da da da, in this case, 1 to 6. And it would ask you to list 4 things from this part of a text about a specific thing. So in the example, this thing is just from 2023. It says list 4 things specifically about hyenas from this part of the source. So ways that I would do well, or I advise you to do well, is this kind of question doesn't need long explanations. It simply needs 4 factual statements, which you can either write in your own words or take short quotes from the text. But I would avoid copying long bits of text. You only need 4 to 5 word answers. So it was, it is, she was, he was statements. Nothing more complicated than that. As I said, it's a really simple skill for factual bits of information, 4 to 5 words. So as an example then, I'm going to talk you through a work example and then what I do with my Key Stage 3 class is I get them to be interactive and I want you to start putting things into the chat. I want this to be a discussion. Those of you who've been with me and done English language before, you probably hate me, but you know I love making this a discussion because that's what English language should be. So, okay, it was the hyena that worried me. I had not forgotten father's words. Hyenas attack in packs. Whatever animal can be run down. They go for zebras, gnu, and water buffaloes, and not only the old or the infirm in a herd, but full-grown members. They are hardy attackers, rising up from the buttings and kickings immediately, never giving up for simple lack of will. And they are clever. Anything that can be distracted from its mother is good. So the question here is list 4 things about hyenas from this part of the source. So as I read through, I'm going to start highlighting things that I would pick because we're looking for factual statements. So firstly, it was the hyena that worried me. We've already got our first statement. Factual bit of information, the hyenas worried him. It's a fact. So all I need to put is a simple statement, the hyenas worried him. Full stop. Would get you the mark. Hyenas attack in packs. Again, 4 words. Hyenas attack in packs, full stop. You've got a mark. Whatever animal can be run down. They attack whatever animal can be run down. Mark. They go for zebras, a fact. They go for gnu. They go for water buffaloes. A lovely thing about these kind of questions, and I think I've highlighted this in a next slide somewhere, is that always look for rules of 3. Because in an exam situation, in a mark scheme, these 3 things will technically all be separate marks. So always look for your rules of 3 because each of those 3 things will be a mark. So they go for zebras, gnu, and water buffaloes, all facts. They go for not only the old, but the infirm. That's a fact. They are hardy attackers. They rise up from buttings. They rise up from kickings. They never give up. They are clever. Anything can be distracted from its mother. All factual bits of information. And what you should be beginning to see is in this kind of question, there will never be a lack of answers. They tend to give you 10 to 20 options of things to say. So you're never going to be stuck with choosing to pick out 4 because there'll always be lots. Yeah, and I put here, tip, if there's ever a rule of three, all three listed things are marked as three separate points. And to prove that to you, this was the mark scheme from this year, and I've just copied it. So notice there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. There's 23 optional things you could say. I've only gone into some of them, but there will never be a lack of things for you to say. Um, okay. So yeah, things like they cause. Notice as well, I just went through the actual quotes, but you could use your own words. So for example, they cause worry, you know, they worried him. You could just write they cause worry. Um, they attack zebras, gnu, water buffaloes. Proof that the rule of three is three separate marks. They attack in general would have been a mark. They are hunters. They are hardy, resilient, determined, tough. They never give up, clever. Yeah. So it's a nice, easy section to get marks on. Okay. So just out of curiosity, what would you say? Which answer here do you think would receive the most marks? Do you think it's the one on the left, or do you think it's the one on the right? Someone tell me in the chat. Hopefully, it should be a easy answer. It's fine if not. Leave it quiet, I see. Someone said left, someone said right. Okay, two different answers. It is, in fact, a trick question. Both of these would get 4 marks, but the first one is more time efficient. My point I'm trying to make is you don't need to be writing big, long sentences. 3 to 5 word statements of fact is absolutely enough. And if you're doing any more than that, you're just wasting time because you're going to get the same amount of marks, but then you might lose marks later on because you lost a minute or two earlier on that you didn't need to waste. So bullet points, absolutely fine. Okay, now the change that I need to mention is that come 2026, come the next year exams, which is the ones that the current year 11s will be sitting, this question one will become multiple choice. So it will no longer be select 4 things. It will be like this. It will be a multiple choice question. But the skills are exactly the same. It's still picking things out. And also, it's worth mentioning the exam will also focus more on a 19th century text, so Victorian novel, rather than modern text. So that's something as well. Now, there aren't really, someone said, isn't it more detail? I mean, yes, but do you agree that this sentence asks for 4 facts, 4 bits of information? These are all enough. They're only 1 mark each. If you're writing more than that, I mean, granted, if this was 8 marks, yeah, this one would probably be the right one. But because it's only 4 marks, we don't need to be writing more than 3 to 5 word things here. Okay, so there aren't really many examples of multiple choice available. I have managed a couple. So we're going to do a worked example, and then I want some interactivity, please. So this is more what your exam will look like. And it will say read again from the first part of the source, lines X to Z. Tick 1 box for each question. And I've highlighted tick because don't ignore the instructions of the exam. Don't put a cross, don't mark through the box, tick it. And the reason they say that is because when these exams get marked, they get put through a system. And so if the computer system can't recognize the answer that you've chosen because you didn't tick it, well, you might be losing yourself a mark. So yeah, don't be silly, tick it, please. And I've also highlighted 1 box. Again, for the same reason, don't go ticking multiple boxes because then the computer that marks it is going to be confused. And so, yeah, you're going to lose the mark there. So let's read through this text then. From the Jungle Book of 1984. The moon was sinking behind the hill, and the lines of trembling monkeys huddled together on the walls and battlements looked like ragged, shaky fringes of things. Baloo whispered, "Is it now time to go? Do not let them see you move." Mowgli crept forward on all fours, keeping close to the shadows. From above, the cries of the Bandalog echoed through the ruins as they danced in the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of moss and damp stone. Kira moved silently beside Mowgli. his sleek black fur blending in darkness. A branch cracked underfoot, and for a moment all was still. Then the monkey's chattering grew louder. Mowgli took a deep breath. He knew they had to move quickly before they were discovered. So, some tips that I've given you on the side. Always make sure you read the question carefully, because this new format is testing your reading abilities rather than making inferences. So you need to be looking at the exact wording of both the question and the quotes. And the thing that I keep telling some of my key stage, some of my English students, is in English, never try to assume something that you aren't told. You can infer something, but there's a difference between inferring and assuming. Now, for AO1, we don't need to do any of that. All the answers will be literally given to you in the text. All we're doing is reading the text and finding and locating those answers. The text will tell you everything you need to know. So, first question, what are the monkeys on the walls and battlements doing? Well, what I would do is look at this exact question. What is actually being asked of you? Well, the topic is the monkeys on the walls of the battlements. So what I would do is I'd read the text, I'd find those exact words within the text. Well, they're here. The monkeys huddled together on the walls of the battlements. So what am I going to do to now work out the answer? Well, I'm going to read the rest of the sentence. I found the focus, and it says they look like ragged, shaky fringes of things. So, monkeys huddled together on the walls and battlements. What are they doing? Are they hiding? Are they trembling? Or are they grooming each other? Well, what I went for, I think the right answer is that they are trembling monkeys huddled together on the walls and battlements. It tells me in the actual text what the answer is. They're trembling. So notice you don't need to do any extra work. The answer is given to you in the text. So question 2, how does Mowgli move through the ruins? Well, let me find this in the text. It says here, Mowgli crept forward. He's moving, found the point of focus. Now what do? I read the rest of the sentence to work out what the correct answer will be. Is it on all fours? Is it quickly at speed? Or is he keeping away from the shadows? Well, it tells me Mowgli crept forward on all fours. So I know that's the correct answer. Personally, I think these have been made easier for you by AQA. I think these are easier than the original pick 4 things, which were already easy enough. So I would hope for your AO1, you'll be smashing that 10% because it's literally just reading and picking out answers. Okay. Now, your turn. I want answers in the chat, please, for these next questions, just so we're all on the same page. Next, what does Bagheera do as they leave? What I would do is I would find that within the text. I found Bagheera's name mentioned here. So what I would do is read the rest of the quote. What does Bagheera do as they leave? Do they walk ahead leading the way? Do they move without noise beside Mowgli? Or do they dance in the moonlight? Correct answers all around. They moved without a noise beside Mowgli. And I know that because it literally tells me that. They moved silently beside Mowgli. I know they've worded it slightly different. They've said silently and they've said move without noise. They're trying to trick you a little bit, but hopefully you wouldn't be fooled by that. But yeah, absolutely correct. Second one. Yep, 5 out of 5. Nice, guys. Okay, next question. What sound comes from above? And this one, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to show you where it is in the text. I'm going to wait for my answers. Okay. Hey, you have fallen into the trap that I would fall into. Only one person has got this correct. 4 out of 5 people got it wrong. A lot of you said, now notice here, I've highlighted what's being picked out. They have specific, and this is highlighted why it's so important to read the question and to do what I'm telling you to do. Okay? What sound comes from above? The key here is above. If I look in the text and I look for those specific words, where would I find them? Here. It literally tells me from above. So if I read the rest of the sentence, It says the cries of the Bandalog echoed. So the right answer is number 3. But most of you said the snapping of a branch, and you fell into the trap that AQA wanted you to fall into. They wanted you to think that each of these answers is going to be in the order of the story, but it's not. So you always got to be careful because the questions won't necessarily be in the order of the story in the text. Here, the answer to question 4 is found before the answer to question 3. So I get why you would think it is the branch snapping because it says it here. It says a branch cracked underfoot. But what that tells me is that you didn't read the question. And it tells me that you didn't reread the text. Because if you did, you would have found from above. I also know that this is the wrong answer because it says a branch cracked underfoot. The answer is talking about above, but here it says the opposite, it says underfoot. So the answer would have been the cries of the Bandalog. Always read the question and text carefully. The branch is underfoot, not above. Any questions on that? So don't fall into the trap because it happens. It happens in an exam situation to stress. But it's proof that you always need to reread the text and the question because you could fall into the trap. Okay, let's try again then. Why does Mowgli take a deep breath? Is it because he's afraid of the dark? Is it because he understands the need to act fast before noticing? Or is it because he is unsure of what to do next and is going to ask Baloo? First, find the exact wording in the text, then read on and see what it tells you because it should be given to you in the text. Okay, wait for these answers to come in. Someone lovely, Eamon. Always trust Eamon. Yep, cool. Second one. It is the second one. Look here, it tells us Mowgli took a deep breath. I found the wording in the question, or in the text rather. So now I need to read on. It tells me he knew they had to move quickly before they were discovered. So therefore, it is the second one. Also, I'm glad that none of you fell into the trap this time. Because you could have said he's afraid of the dark, because it does mention darkness, but you would have been looking at the wrong thing. It doesn't say that he's afraid of darkness, it just mentions it. But it does tell us directly that he knew they had to move quickly, which is the wording of the question. Okay, what can be inferred about the monkeys from the description of them as ragged, shaky fringes of things? Now, this is a less likely question you'd be asked because you wouldn't necessarily be as likely to get inference questions, but see what you make of that. Already got a couple of our answers. Yep, yep, yep. It is number 3. That they are weak and disordered and disordered. And when you make inferences, you should be looking at the meanings and connotations of words. So when I think of ragged, I think of weak, I think of floppy. When I think shaky, I think fear. So the only one that relates to those things is the bottom one here by me. Okay. You'd also think about AQA. See AO1 in paper 2, question 1. Now, this was already a multiple choice and is going to stay that way. But this one's not changing. And in this question, when you're looking at non-fiction, you'll get asked, read again from the first part of the source from lines X to Z. Choose 4 statements below which are true. And I've highlighted in green the word true because I've never seen you be asked anything else. So you're always looking for the correct, truthful statements, not the ones that are false, the ones that are correct, truth. So choose a maximum of 4 statements. And again, just to emphasize, don't pick more than 4 because when it goes through the computer and it all gets scanned, you're going to lose a mark. So don't pick more than 4 in the hopes that you'll guess the right answer because you won't. You'll just lose a mark. So advice that I would give you for this kind of question: shade the box. Don't tick it this time. It tells you explicitly in the instructions to shade, and there's a reason for that because it's going to go through the system. Only shade 4 statements. Like I said, you're not going to get an extra mark for putting 5 in hopes that it's going to trick the system. It won't. You'll just lose a mark. So don't be silly. And think carefully before you shade in order to avoid mistakes. Because if you do shade and then you realize you picked the wrong answer, then all you need to do is put a cross through it and rub it out. And then it should know you've crossed that answer out. So what I would do in this kind of question is I would start by highlighting the words in the question, and then I denote that you only have 4 minutes. So let's do an example together then. Now I'm about to say something that I never thought I would. I had had a good night's sleep. I had a good night's sleep last night. And the night before that, all week, in fact, I've tipped into bed, my mind restless for one shuddering moment before I lie flat on my back and repeat a well-rehearsed script. At which point my thoughts drop off into dark, velvety sleep. A full night's sleep could never have happened a few years ago. I am now 44, but until my late 30s, I had insomnia that clung on from childhood and progressively beat me down. So let's work our way through the statements here. I've highlighted in the text where they are. A says the writer was confident from the start that she would beat her insomnia, and then the writer is surprised that she has a good night's sleep. These two are conflicting statements. I already know off the bat that only one of them is going to be true. But which one is it? Well, you've got to consider the tone of the words. She says that she never thought that she would have a good night's sleep. So that suggests that she's lacking confidence, surprised. So therefore, the second one's going to be correct, and I put a highlighted through that. Option C says it is the first time that the writer has slept well for weeks. Is that correct? Well, she does mention weeks. Well, she says all week. However, be careful because she doesn't say weeks, she says week, which implies one, not multiple. So I can infer that answer's probably not going to be correct. She then says the writer's mind is very active when she first gets into bed. Well, is that correct? It says, my mind restless for wondering moment. Restless implies active. So yeah, I guess that one is correct. She then says the writer sleeps lying on her side. Well, I've looked in the text to where this is, which is before I turn to lie flat on my back. So we already know now that's not correct because it says that she lies on her back, not her side. So I know that's incorrect. The writer has used the script before. Well, she says, repeat a well-rehearsed script. The word repeat and well-rehearsed imply multiple uses. So I can say that that's correct. At which point my thoughts drop off into dark velvety sleep. The writer has black velvet sheets on her bed. Well, I know that's not going to be correct because they've tried to trick you again. She does mention darkness and she does mention velvet, but it's not within the context that the statement is asking you about. It wants you to see if she has velvet sheets. But the darkness and the velvet is not linked to sheets. It's the sleep that she's describing. So therefore, it's not going to be correct because it's sleep, not sheets. The writer had suffered from insomnia since she was a child. But it says at the bottom, I had insomnia that clung on from childhood. The idea of clung infers long period of suffering. So yeah, I can tick that as correct. So that's how I would work through this kind of question. And what you'll notice is that the options due for this question tend to be in the order of events from top to bottom. And I've noted that in colours here. I've never seen a year where the options aren't in the order of the story. So that's a little tip for you in this question. If you can't find an option in the order of the story, then it's probably not going to be correct. So yeah, they do tend to be in chronological order to the options of the story. Okay, so in other words, the options A, B, and C are going to be sort of up here. Options G and H are going to be down here. Okay, right. Now there's one for you to do, to have a go at them. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I want some answers in the chat, which you think are true of this question, and then we'll go through it. I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. In the exam, you'd have 4, but I'm going to give you 2 just because we've got to move on. But I want you to have a go at this. I'll read it out. And now the journey was almost over. There is no more luxurious sensation than what may be described as the end of term feeling. I felt very content. After tomorrow, there would be no more trips to the dining car, no more of that black bread, inconsistency in flavour, suggesting rancid peat. No more of that equally earthy tea, no more of a monk's existence, no more days entirely blank of action. It was true that I did not know what I was going to do, that I had nothing very specific to look forward to, but I knew what I was going to stop doing, and that, for the moment, was enough. So let's work our way through these. The writer is at the start of the journey. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false? This is in chat. False, false. Yep, you'd be absolutely right to say that's false because it tells us, it tells us, I didn't mark it on, that the journey was almost over. So no, that's false. The writer is looking forward to leaving the train. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false? We've got a mixture here. We said yes, false, true, true. It is true. And it tells us that here. There is no more luxurious sensation than what may be described as the end of term feeling. So it's suggesting that he's happy to be leaving. Okay. The writer will be on the train for 3 more days. Is that true or is that false? False, false. Yep, false. Getting through. Absolutely. The train has a carriage where meals are served. Is this true or is that false? Yes. True. Anyone else? Yep, absolutely is. It is true. And here's the text to prove it. It tells us that after tomorrow, there will be no more trips to the dining car. The train has a dining car. There's a place where meals are served. Okay, whoops, so giving you the answer to the next one, Mal. Giving you it now, might as well leave it. The writer feels that he has been cut off from society. Well, I know that because it tells us that he's had a monk's existence. That he's had days entirely blank of action. That's suggesting that, yeah, he's been cut off. So the difference between paper 1 and paper 2 is that paper 2 is more about inferences than paper 1. Where paper 1 is more about selecting quotes, paper 2 is about making inferences. Okay, the writers have many activities to keep him busy. Is that true or is that false? False, 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 absolutely. Therefore, the last one is true. The writer does not have any plans for when he leaves the train. Well, there's your evidence. It was true that I did not know what I was going to do. I had nothing very specific to look forward to. And again, just to prove my point, all of these are within the order of the text. Okay, right. We'll do one more. We've not got that much time left, so I might leave Educast to... Actually, no, we won't. I will do Educast. It's only one question. We'll skip it for now. Okay. I will quickly move on to Educast. I will make this interactive as well. So Educast, again, very similar to AQA, will be paper 1, question 1. And it's very similar to how AQA do comprehension. So remember back to the old way that AQA did it, they asked for 4 things, but Educast lists 5 things you learn about the narrator in these lines, is the way that they do things. So very similar. We're looking for factual, short bits of information that you can either write in your own words or taking short quotes. Avoid copying long quotations, and you only need 3 to 5 word answers. It was, it is, she was, he was, keeping it concise. Except this is 5 marks compared to AQA's 4. So here you're 5 minutes. And again, I just want to emphasize that both of these will get the same amount of marks. So save yourself some time and do the one on the left. So let's do this example together. I want to see some answers in the chat for this one. The question is, list 5 things you learn about the narrator. What do you think? I want to see some answers in the chat. So when I first moved to the country, my only companion was a horse. It was a big brown thing that lived in a field at the end of my garden. I was not used to horses, but soon it was hanging its heavy head over my fence, and I was feeding it to patties. I come home from London, so does my husband, but we moved near to Swindon because he was making his way in the world. I was proud of him then. The neighbours weren't really unfriendly, we just didn't have that much in common. Me having no kids, I don't think it was to do with prejudice. After all, I didn't go around in a sari or anything. I was born and bred in England, the same as. Okay. Someone said they came from London. Excellent. First fact. We know that because it says, I come from London. He was born and bred in England. Correct. It says it at the bottom. Any other facts? Simple statements of information. I can tell you from the mark scheme, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 31. 21 possible answers to this. Yep, they had a horse, correct. Moved to Swindon, correct. There's 4 off the bat, right there. The neighbours were not unfriendly. Yeah, absolutely. No kids, absolutely. Okay, so let's work through it. When I first moved to the country, you could say they moved to the country, would have been a fact. Their only friend or companion was a horse, is a fact. She had a garden, is a fact that you could say. She wasn't used to horses, is a fact. She had a fence, something as simple as that is a fact. She fed it chapatis, a fact. She came from London. She has a husband. She moved to Swindon. She's proud of her husband. She had neighbours that weren't unfriendly. She didn't have much in common with the neighbours. She had no kids. She didn't think that it was due to prejudice. Yeah, no kids. She didn't go around in a sari. She was born and bred in England. All of those are acceptable facts. Okay. And this is the mark scheme to prove it. So there's always loads and loads of options to choose from. Okay. Okay, final one that we'll do, and then I'll let you go for the evening. And then next week we'll move on to some Edexcel and OCR work. Yeah, so read lines 1 to 6. It's 5 things you learn about Lisa in these lines. So, same as you were doing, my sister Lisa is an artist. She is not like other people. Lisa is 2 years younger than I am, and we knew quite early on that she was artistic. Partly because she could always draw so nicely, but also because of the way she behaved. She lives in a world of her own, my mother used to say. She was always the difficult one, always having tantrums and getting upset about one thing and another. Once mother realised about her being artistic, she made allowances. We all did. Okay, right. Let's have a look. She's an artist. Fact 1, correct. She's 2 years younger than the narrator. Correct. She's difficult. Correct. Anything else? Now this one's only got 10 possible answers and you've already got 3. She's different. Correct. She gets upset. Correct. She's artistic. Yep. Let's look our way through. Let's look for facts. My sister Lisa is an artist. Well, first one, she's a sister. But she's an artist. She's not like other people. She's 2 years younger than the narrator. Sorry. People knew quite early on that she was artistic. She could always draw. She behaved weirdly. She lives in a world of her own. She was always difficult. She had tantrums. She got upset. But people made allowances for her. All answers. And here's the mark scheme to prove it. So sister, artistic, not like other people, 2 years younger, good at drawing, lives in a world of her own, difficult, tantrums, upset. Everyone made allowances for her. Okay. Right, next time then, we're going to look at EDUCAT Component 2. We're going to look at Edexcel and we're going to look at OCR. Because as I said, they ask the same skills slightly differently to the other exams. I also want to briefly mention the similarities and differences is technically part of AO1. So we're going to look back through all 4 exam boards at those types of questions as well. So we're going to spend the next couple of weeks on comprehension because you really want to get it down. Okay. So yeah, I'll stay around if anyone wants to ask me any questions. Otherwise, yeah, I haven't really been giving you homework to be honest, but here's some comprehension. Please do email online document if you would to english@steptosuccess.co.uk. And all these slides are going to be uploaded for you all to get because I finally chased Mr. Siddiqui up about it and he's made one today. So they'll all be available to you. Someone said, will you be with us on Saturday, year 11? Possibly. I am normally in on Saturdays, yeah. Which class? Oh, writing a book, that's well interesting. To write on detail. I guess what do you mean by detail? Because ways you could detail, like using language devices as a way of detailing. I think when you're writing something like that, to make something engaging, it's all really about structure. So how do you make sentences flow in an engaging way rather than just starting with really simple sentence starters? I think the story is all about flow. And so starting sentences in an interesting way could help you, especially adding detail as well. You add more detail, at least I find when I don't start sentences simply. I tend to find starting them with adverbs really helps create detail because then you can get your language devices in there. I think detail is a tricky word because I think having deeper figurative meanings behind words is what makes writing beautiful. So, for example, if you do, maybe there's a story where you've gone into the attic and you've picked out a memory that you've not seen in 20 years and there's dust on it. And instead of just saying there's dust on it, you could say colony of dust. You know, the colony is personifying the dust and it also has connotations of being like an overwhelming, powerful force. So yeah, great detail. I think detail can be implied, not necessarily told, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my advice. Like how to write loads but keep the reader hooked. And when you've done it, yeah, send it over. If you know, because it is for this class. Like if you want me to look at your creative writing, I'm more than happy to do that. Like the thing is, writing loads isn't necessarily the right way to look at it. Like the best writing is quality over quantity. And it's like I just said, you want to use techniques, you want implied meaning without telling the reader things, because that's what makes it engaging. Because if you just tell the reader everything, they get bored. There's no secrecy, there's no mystery left in it. Whereas if you have implied meanings, that's what hooks a reader. Like you have twists and turns, that's what hooks a reader. Always show, don't tell. Okay. Right. If anyone's got any more questions, I'll stick around for another minute, but otherwise, have a lovely week. I'll see some of you tomorrow. I'll see some of you on Saturday. Have a nice week. Otherwise, cool. Right. See you later, guys.